Hi, welcome to my YouTube channel AKS Krishnan. So in this video from actually it's a video series. Okay, I'm going to teach you important questions from law, foundation law. This video series will be in English. I'm going to teach you or I'm going to tell you important questions from law. And this is from my book, Foundation Law book, which is 230 rupees, which you can buy it from my website, www.letspassca.com. You can buy it from that. So from this, I'm going to take this classes. So the first question, we can go from Contract Act. So first we will finish Contract Act, then we will go for other topics. So Contract Act, Section 2, question from Section 2. Define consideration, state the characteristics of valid consideration. This is the first question. So answer this. Consideration definition, Section 2D. Okay. Section 2, Clause D. 2D. Consideration, C stands for consideration, but actually D is the clause. At the desire of promisor, promisee or any other person, okay, promisee or any other person has done, that means past tense, or abstain from doing, okay, this is also past tense. Does or abstain from doing, that means present tense, or promise to do or abstaining from doing, this is future tense, okay. At the desire of promisor, it has been done. They are doing something in consideration for the promise. So this is consideration. See, consideration means to do something. That's all. To do something. Now, what is essential? Consideration must go at the desire of promisor. So Durga Prasad versus Baldio. It's a case law. Durga Prasad. So consideration means case law. What case law you should write? Durga Prasad versus Baldio. It may proceed from promisee or another person. So at the desire of promisor, promisee or other person can do it. It can be executed or executory. That means past, done, or future to do. Past, present, and future. Okay, it should be legal, and consideration must be real and not illusion. So this is the first question on consideration. Now the second question, define an offer, explain the essential of valid offer, how an offer is different from invitation to offer. Now offer is also called as proposal. As you all know, offer is also called as proposal. So offer and proposals are interchangeably used, and it is defined under 2A. So the first clause of section 2, 2A, it is offer. Now, offer means when one person signifies to another. So he gives to another. One person signifies to another, okay, his willingness to do or abstain from doing with the intention. That means I'm asking, I'm saying, I'm signifying, okay, I'm telling you something with the intention of obtaining your consent, with the view to obtain the assent from the another. So offer means I'm signifying, okay, that is I'm telling my willingness to do or abstain from doing, and I am waiting for your consent. Okay, now I am set to make a proposal. Now the essential things in the offer is it should be creating a legal relation. I want to sell my bike, I want to buy your bike, etc. Must be setting, okay, I want to buy your bike at 10,000 rupees. It must be communicated. That means I should tell. Must be made with a view to obtain the assent from another party. So it should not be like a news. It should not be like a news. I should obtain your assent. I should obtain your assent. That means I should obtain your saying okay. I want your okay thing. Maybe conditional. Maybe. So offer should not contain a non-compliance amount of acceptance. That means if you are not replying, I will think you accepted. Like that and all, it should not tell. An offer can be either a general to all public or to specific to you. It may be expressed or implied. For example, bus stand, when the bus coming and standing, no, in the bus stand. That means the bus driver is giving the offer to enter. That means it's an implied offer. Okay. Next, a statement of price is not an offer. Just telling a price is not an offer. Okay. Now, offer and invitation to the offer difference. Offer means a final expression of willingness to offer. So once the other party accepted, the first party has to do that, whatever he offered. But in the invitation to the offer, there is an intention to negotiate. There is an intention to negotiate. That is what the invitation to the offer means. So if you see here, the final expression of willingness, okay, it is bound by the offer. Okay, so once the party accepted, they have to do it. On the other hand, the offer made with the intention to negotiate or offer to receive an offer is known as invitation to the offer. Thus, when a party without expression of final willingness proposes certain terms on which he is willing to negotiate, he does not make an offer, but only invites the other party to negotiate for the terms and conditions. Hence, the thing requires is willingness, okay, which is abide. That means he is bound. Understood? This is the difference between offer and invitation to the offer. I hope you understood this. Next. Now we'll go to the next question. Explain the type of contract. So they will give you situation. You have to explain what type of contract it is. A coolie in uniform picks up a luggage, okay, of A. So there is a person called A. One coolie in porter and all, we know, like porter, red color shirt they will wear in the railway station. So that coolie in uniform picks up the luggage of Mr. A to be carried out of the railway station without being asked by A. So generally what they will do, they will immediately come, they will say, sir, not to sir, not to sir, I will pick up, like that. They will keep in the head and they will walk. And the other party, if they don't want, they have to stop. But he allows him to do. What is the type of contract it is? Now, see, if the other party allows, so even without having an oral contract, if you want to stop him, you please say stop. Okay, I don't want your service. Now, so this is an implied contract. Implied contract means what? Implied contract will come into existence without a oral sentence. So section 9 of the Contract Act 1872 says, it contemplates implied contract, okay, lays down that so far such proposal or acceptance is made otherwise than in words. So the proposal and acceptance both has been made not in words by way of some action. So that is called an implied offer. Next, we'll go to the second question. Obligation of finder of lost goods to return them to the true owner. Now, obligation of the finder of the lost goods means that bailor-bailee relationship will come. So the bailor-bailee relationship itself is a quasi-contract. So, for example, your friend came to your house, he left the phone in your house. Without any contract, you should return back to him. So that your duty to return back is created by law. Now, obligation of finder of lost goods to return them to the true owner cannot be said to arise, okay, out of contract. It's a contract which is created by law. So neither offer nor acceptance nor consent is there in this offer. No offer, no acceptance nor consent is there in this offer, this is called a quasi contract. So there is no acceptance, there is no offer itself. So how can there is a promise? How can there is be consideration, and how can it be agreement? How can it be a contract? But this is a contract created by law. It is a duty for the finder of the lost goods to return it to the true owner. So the quasi contract is not an actual contract, but it resembles a contract. It is created by law in some circumstances. The law creates and enforces legal rights and obligation when there is no real contract exists. Such obligations are known as quasi-contracts. In other words, it is a contract in which there is no intention on the part of either party to make a contract, but law imposes the contract upon parties. So what is the other party? The person who lost the goods, no, what is his duty? He has to pay the conveyance, the traveling expenses of the person who returning the goods. Next, third question. Contract with B, owner of factory, for supply of 10 tons of sugars. Okay, so A contracts with B. So B has to supply 10 tons of sugar to A. But before that supply, okay, fire happened in the factory and everything got destroyed. Fire is an act of God. So can A insist B to supply it? What is the answer? It is a void contract. Void contract. 2J of the Act. 2J of the Act. Contract which ceases to be enforceable in the law, okay, it becomes void. It ceases to become enforceable. Void contract is one which cannot be enforced in the court of law. Next question. So this question is from section 4. Ramaswamy proposes to sell his house to Ramanathan. Okay, so Ramaswamy is a seller, Ramanathan is going to be a buyer. So the buyer Ramanathan sent his acceptance by post. Yes, I am ready to buy your house. Ramanathan sends telegram withdrawing his acceptance. Again, so first he sends acceptance to buy, second is withdrawing his acceptance. Examine the validity. So the second telegram, that means the revocation telegram, was received by Ramaswamy before the letter of acceptance. That means acceptance letter is a normal postal letter. Maybe it takes 2-3 days time, but telegram reaches immediate. Means like very fast. So when the revocation reached the offerer, before the acceptance reaches, what is the condition? Now, the problem which is relating to communication and time of acceptance and its revocation. Section 4. Okay, communication of an acceptance is complete as against the acceptor when it comes to the knowledge of the proposer. An acceptance may be revoked anytime before the communication of acceptance is completed as against the acceptor, but not afterwards. So, before Mr. Ramaswamy opens the acceptance letter, before that, if the revocation reaches, then acceptance is not valid. Okay. So referring to the above provision, what is the A question? Telegram of revocation received by Ramaswamy, that is a proposer, before the letter of acceptance. That means what? Revocation is valid. Yes, revocation of acceptance of Ramanathan is valid. Second scenario, telegram as well as the letter of acceptance both reach together. If Ramaswamy opens the telegram first, normally this would be a normal scenario of a rational person. Okay, if he reads it first, then the acceptance stands revoked. But in case if he opens the normal letter first, then see, telegram means always, since it is an urgent thing, they will open that first. But in a irrational scenario, if he opens a letter of acceptance first and reads it, then his acceptance is valid. The revocation is not valid. Okay, can you able to understand? So if he reads that letter first, the revocation of acceptance is not possible as the contract has already been concluded. Then the next question is state various modes of revocation of offer. So various modes of revocation. So there are 7 modes of revocation, right? So first one is notice of revocation. That means I am giving that I am giving a letter that I am not going to do. So this is a notice of revocation. Second one is lapse of time. So acceptance, if it is not given, so we are actually talking about revocation of offer. So I am giving one offer to you. You have to accept it within certain time. If you are not going to offer it within certain time, then my offer stands revoked. So after acceptance, if it's not given within specified time or within a reasonable time. Specified time means I told you have to come back to me within 3 days. So that is specified time. But if I not told anything like that, no, you have to come back to me within 5 days, 6 days, if I'm not told anything, within a reasonable time. Okay, if it is not done, then my offer stands revoked. Okay, so previously there is a case law, but this case law is not valid today, but there is a case law previously, Ramsgate Victoria Hotel and all. See, for example, as a offerer, I gave money to you to allot me shares and you are not allotting me shares within time. Okay, see, today Companies Act says you have to allot within 60 days. But previously, in the old Companies Act, there is no time limit. Okay, they will just keep it in share application money pending allotment. That's all. But today you have to allot within 60 days. So, but no, in Companies Act 1926, there is no time period for the allotment. So you have to allot reasonable time. That's what has been mentioned here. Next, so I completed notice of revocation. Next, lapse of time over. Third, non-fulfillment of the condition precedent. So non-fulfillment of the condition precedent means what? They have to fulfill a conditions which is proposed by the offerer. For example, I want to check whether you have enough money capacity, monetary capacity you have. So for example, if I will be telling that if you want to if you want to give quotation, you have to give me earnest money deposit, security deposit you have to pay. So I want to check your monetary capacity. So if I put in my offer that anyone who is going to give earnest money deposit can only come forward for my offer, like that, if I put, here we have to accept it. Okay, if you want to come forward, then you have to give me the earnest money deposit. If you are not giving, then my offer is not for you. So where the acceptor fails to fulfill the condition precedent in the acceptance, okay, the proposal gets revoked. Okay, for example, the offerer, for instance, may impose certain condition such as executing a certain document or depositing, some earnest money deposit. So that means security deposit. So failure to satisfy that condition, then, so this is the condition precedent. That means you have to deposit some money. So if you're not going to do that, then my offer stands revoked. Then death or insanity. So a death or insanity of the offerer would result automatically in revocation of the proposal, but only if the fact death or insanity comes to the knowledge of the acceptor. Next, counter offer. So once my offer is not absolutely accepted, if you are giving me, no, sir, I cannot give 5,000 rupees as you told, I can give only 4,000 rupees. So if you are giving a counter offer, my offer stands revoked. Then non-acceptance in a prescribed or a usual mode. If I given my offer in writing, you should give acceptance in writing, okay, or a usual mode. Then subsequent illegality. So all these things are revocation of the offer. Section 6. Now let us go for section 7. Important question. Comment on the following statements. Acceptance must be absolute and unqualified. Obviously, yes, acceptance must be absolute and unqualified. If I give a qualified acceptance, then it becomes like a counter offer, correct? So as per section 7 of the Indian Contract Act, acceptance is valid only when it is absolute and unqualified and is also expressed in a usual or a reasonable manner, unless the proposal prescribes any particular manner. So for example, if I'm asking you to reply only in email, then you have to reply only in email. You cannot give me post. If the proposal prescribes the manner in which it should be accepted, then it should be accepted in accordance to that manner only. Now, A inquires B, will you purchase my car for rupees 2 lakhs? B says, I shall purchase your car for rupees 2 lakhs if you buy my motorcycle for 50,000 rupees. Here, it is not absolute acceptance. It is a qualified acceptance. If you buy my motorcycle, I will buy your car. Then it is not acceptance. Instead, it is a counter offer. In other hand, B says, yes, I am ready to purchase your car, provided if you have RC book and insurance. Now, this is not a qualified or absolute. This is not a qualified. Okay, this is unqualified only. This is absolute acceptance only, because car should have RC book, car should have insurance. So this is not, we cannot say this as a counter offer. Okay. We'll go to the next question. A sends an offer to B to sell his second-hand car, rupees 1,40,000, with the condition that if B does not reply within a week, A shall treat the offer as accepted. See, A is asking, okay, I'm ready to sell my car to B for 1,40,000. If you are not saying anything, I will treat this that you are ready to buy my car at 1,40,000 rupees. Is A correct in his proposal? Okay. What shall be the position of B if B communicates his acceptance after 1 week? Now, answer. Acceptance to an offer cannot be implied merely from silence of the offering. So, just because B is silent, you cannot say B has accepted A's offer. Even if it is expressly stated in the offer itself, that means they are saying, if you are silent for a week's time, that means I am accepting that you are, that means you are accepting. Okay. Unless the offeree has, by his previous conduct, indicated that his silence amounts to acceptance, it cannot be taken into a valid acceptance. So in the given problem, if B remains silent, it does not amount to acceptance. The acceptance must be made within the time which is prescribed in the contract, this offer itself. Acceptance of an offer after the time prescribed by the offeror, okay, as elapsed, will not be a valid. Okay, so it is up to the offeror to accept. Okay, it is up to the offeror to accept the offeree's acceptance. Okay, so if B is replying even after a week, A can even reject. No, it is a lapse of time. My offer is revoked. We already studied section 6. So with that, A can even reject it, but A can even also say, okay, it's up to A to decide that. Okay. So we have completed important questions till section 7. So we conclude this video here. So please share our important question videos to your friends. Ask them to subscribe to our channel. Ask them to WhatsApp me directly. My phone number is 99405 12888, and they can WhatsApp me the name, okay, and the place where they are from. And I'm restricting my thing only to Tamil Nadu people for foundation level. Foundation, because I frequently talk in Tamil in foundation level. For inter and final only, I'm going to be talking in full English. You can see all my videos in YouTube. My inter and final will be in full English. But for foundation, I used to talk in Tamil. And since it is a question answer session, for foundation itself, I'm talking in English. So be in connect with me. This is a series of video. We are going to discuss a lot of questions. So be in connect. Thank you so much.